Well, I just got finished watching House of the Dragon, and we need to talk about this. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Crow here, coming with books, movies, rants, more, coming with nerdum and blurdum and everything in between. And we need to talk about episode 1 of the prequel of House of the Dragon, the prequel slash sequel to Game of Thrones. And it is a part of George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series. If you haven't read the book, well, I guess you can go read the books if you need to get anything else. But this is his universe, pretty much. His, I don't know, branching out to be the next Lucas films, in a poor matter of speaking. But I just got finished watching the first season, episode 1 of House of the Dragon, and we have a lot to speak about. Apparently this is a woman's game, but it's not a woman's game. And if you guys don't know, this is a prequel set 172 years before the initial events of Game of Thrones. So these are Daenerys' ancestors. Of course, kind of in the settings and where it is and the wings of it. We'll just say this is a matter about succession. All of this is a matter of succession and who gets the Iron Throne, but it ends up being a thing where people start doing a whole civil war over this Iron Throne. Tell me something we seriously do not know anymore. But yes, this is one of the things that is very interesting about this. With this being said 172 years before the events of Game of Thrones, the pressure is racked up. It's racked up. Now, I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos, but I have strong objections. I have and had, seeing what's been placed before me at episode 1, have strong objections about this being solely on the Targaryen dynasty. I would have loved to see the first spin-off series about the Night King and his origins and how he was made, because he was the most mysterious character on the show, which plagued Game of Thrones for about 10 damn years. Okay, it kept us hooked every Sunday. It made it a cultural phenomenon unlike anything we've ever known. And while I can simply sit here and, go ahead and go ape shit like I've done in my previous videos about all of this, I really want to know, how do you call it? I really want to know what was going through the head of the writers. I really wanted to know what was going through the head of the writers, because I found episode 1 to be boring, underwhelming, shallow, and pedantic. It feels like it's writing on the coattails of Game of Thrones in its checklist or its predecessor. It feels like it is. It felt like it checked every check box that was needed, that was in the previous Game of Thrones. You checked off your battles, you checked off your gore, you checked off your sex, you checked off your full nudity. The only thing they haven't checked off basically was the rape. And thank God they didn't check that off, because it's not tasteful anymore. But all of this is centered on King Viserys and his brother Daemon and their council, trying to see who King Viserys' next heir will be. Now, previous to 9 years, Viserys had earned the throne during the Great Council within Harrenhal. King Jaehaerys was dying. If you guys don't know him, look at Targaryen history. And the Council of 101 was called. Long story short, it was between Viserys and, I always get this woman's name wrong because there's so many confusing names. It still bothers me to this day. But Rhaena Targaryen, or the queen who never was, it is pretty much a contest between them. They choose Viserys because he's the male heir. And they were like, fuck it. We don't want to see a woman sit on a goddamn throne. At the end of the day, excuse me, that was my phone. At the end of the day, what could be summarized into this whole thing is about succession and what goes on in the level of, you have a bunch of manipulative men getting ready to manipulate women. I know I'm getting ready to say spoiler alert, but it is what it is at the end of the day. You know, I know it can be tough to know, or it's tough to hear these things, and a lot of fans are tough and they're like, they're tough on it, and some people who aren't tough on it, but there is a truth that we do all need to get into, a reality that this is nowhere near as good and captivating as the first episode of God. I mean, I don't know if they needed somebody to push out of a window or another brand to push out a window. Hell, they could have pushed Emma out the window, for Christ's sakes. But somebody needed to be pushed out of a window to give and solidify that shock, to solidify that, oh, they ain't playing and nobody ain't safe. This episode was played very safe, but very dangerous at the same time. I know there's a lot of things to go on at the end of the day, but I will say it like this. This shit needs work. It needs work. It's sloppy in so many ways. Everything from the CGI with the dragons to the damn hair to the costumes, where it's like, okay, hello, this is 172 years in the past. The customs of dress style have to change. I mean, they gotta change. No, just the same. This is more like a poor man's version of Game of Thrones. I have to say it. Where a lot of things were beautiful. And I mean, when I say beautiful in the level of the dragons, Drogon, and you had Rhaegal and Viserion, how gorgeous and bold and beautiful these dragons were, to a bunch of long-necked weird dragons from How to Train Your Dragon. It looks like bad offset CGI. And it didn't blend in very well with the environment. I mean, if we're going to just start getting into the problems and the listing of problems of what it was, I mean, the problems outweigh more than the positivity of it at a lot of realms and a lot of angles. They outweigh things. There's so many negatives in this on a societal construct, and as well on a more nuanced construct of this being fantasy. And even on a settings construct, first of all, they should have just kept the original Iron Throne. Having all the Iron Throne and the spike stick up, it was cute, but they should have just made the throne taller. It would have really hit more if you're just going to go for that kind of book accuracy. It just looks really ugly and sloppy, and it's kind of like, why is this all here? It's like a mess, just a bunch of melted mess. And I know the throne on the books is supposed to look really, really ugly, but some things I'm just going to say just need to stay in the book. They really just do. Some things don't need to be on screen, and that was one of them. But there's that, and there's the overusage of dragons. Yes, we all knew that this was going to be about a Targaryen civil war, and it was about dragons, but none of the dragons were introduced or really just given the regality and the beauty and the grace that they were. And maybe it's because they probably knew that they fucked up on the CGI of these dragons, because Cyrex was just ugly as hell. I ain't never seen an ugly dragon before, and I usually think dragons are quite gorgeous. But to be in quite open and honest and just be honest with it, they looked like somebody from grade school drew them. They really did. It really did. It didn't give the kind of regality and the mightiness of the Targaryen Empire that had taken place 172 years ago. 72 or 74. I'm sorry. I may be roughly off with my math. But it just didn't give that kind of feel to it. It just didn't. They just looked there. And while you had Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion, you had them. They just had personality. They just had like personality. I mean, especially Drogon. Drogon had the biggest personality. These dragons just go like, I'm just here to get ridden on, and I'm a wild beast, and that's it. There was no really kind of moment. Now, I will say during Aemma's her funeral pyre with the child and the mother, the dragon kind of looked like it did show remorse, like, or like, oh my god, I gotta burn her and stuff like that. When she, when we had, of course, Princess Rhaenyra say Dracarys, but it was that. I don't really see where they're going to be going with these dragons except for just using them as props to fight. And while you want dragons in shows and the miracle of it, it's kind of like you've already tired us out already. You've already tired us out of this whole situation. You've already tired so many people out. And they're only used to kind of speed up the pacing, which brings me to my next situation. The dialogue was completely terrible between Corlys, Sir Otto Hightower, between everybody on their small council, on Viserys' small council. They were just boring as actors. And this was what I was really discussing with friends and close peers and things like that who know the part of the fandom. I knew the acting was going to suffer a bit. I mean, and a lot of people say, well, stop comparing this to Game of Thrones. It's a part of the damn fucking series. It's a part of the franchise. It's called A Song of Ice and Fire. These are not separate things. And when you link Daenerys' name in the beginning of the subtitles, like this is 172 years before Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen, you're still linking this up. It cannot be unwashed or undone. 10 years of people wasting their time should not be unwashed and undone. It can't. I'm sorry. And it's really sad, unfortunately, how they treated these dragons and how they don't blend into the environment or look natural. Or like they were even meant to be there. It's sad how this is just horrible. Like, it's really sad at this point. It's really sad to see that. But that's between the dragons. And that's even between the dialogue as well, too. Is that it's sad to see everything just it's just go and shrink to this diminutive size in which people don't care. The actors just looked like they were there hammering down lines. They were wooden, they were stiff. They didn't have the kind of element that Lena Headey had or Emilia Clarke had, or even Nikolai Costco and Walmart. I do not know that man's last name. Let's not play this shit. His last name is horrible. It did not have that kind of thing. Or even Kit Harington. Even though I thought his character was dull as dishwater, but Kit played the shit out of that role. These people don't look good or save their roles with conviction. It is horrifying. I know Millie Alcock is trying to do the best that she can as the young Princess Rhaenyra. And Matt Smith is a good Daemon. He is a good Daemon. I'm not going to sit here and lie. The dude is good at it. But when it comes to the whole creepy perv situation, it just blows me out of the way. And while Matt Smith is good at playing a creepy fucking prince like he did on Crown, this is just not speaking to me at it. Now, I will say that his hair is laid like a motherfucker. Him and Rhaenyra's hair, that's how Targaryen wigs should be looking. It's laid than a motherfucker. But the rest of them all look nappy, gray, which gives me to the costumes. Like I said earlier, they're just horrifying. They're hellified and horrifying. And I can't seem to concentrate and get my mind off of how horrifying this is and the lack of effort that's been put into this. It's a lack of effort. Everything screams just dull as dishwater. And while everything was checked off in Game of Thrones in terms of its usual violence, it seems like those violent moments, those dragon moments were used to pick up on a slow writing or a slow delivery system of writing. Like, oh yeah, this is getting boring. Let's just put in an attorney and let everybody bash their brains in. And you're like doing this like right away on episode 1. Like what? Not even the first episode of Game of Thrones had that much gore. Sure, Bran got pushed out of a tower, but it was shocking because we were like, there's no way in hell they're going to push that little boy out that tower like that. There's no way in fucking hell that's going to happen. No, it happened. It happened, and we got Bran the surveillance system 7 seasons later. But at the end, there still was something shocking in there and just woven into this intricate world that was supposed to be George R. R. Martin's incomplete fucking world. Yeah, I'm saying incomplete because he didn't complete the goddamn books. Come on, you got to get on that. I think these shows are being used so he doesn't have to do it. Just saying, but that's a side note. And what really just ties into the whole situation of this was supposed to be a political drama and supposed to be really political. None of the characters act in such a way to let me know that there is something going on. It's something that they want. It's something that they need. It's more talking than show. The information gaps and fills are just horrible. Which, if we really needed to speak about it and talk about it, this is why I did not agree with House of the Dragon being the first spin-off show. It should have went to the Night King instead. Because we're fresh off the heels of this nigga dying. Real too easily, may I add. But we kind of wanted to know, as somebody who's never said anything a day in their damn life, all 10 years, how the hell was he made? And what was his purpose for? And what did the Long Night have to do with so much? And who was it that made the Night King who they were? And who was the identity of the Night King? Who was it? Some people say Stark, some people don't. That should have been the main focus for a spinoff, not this lackluster shit. It's lackluster. And while they want to say, oh, it's about women, Game of Thrones has a horrible reputation of how they define women. The writer does too. So I don't even want to hear at this level about, oh, it's D&D's fault. This is Miguel Sapochnik's crap as well as George R. R. Martin's. And so that lets me know at a certain point of it is we can stop blaming D&D once this flops, like I've been seeing in the comments, which is tremendously flopping. Nobody's interested in it anymore. There's only a few people who are book shows and fans that are interested in it, but it's not the phenomenon that it needs to be. Maybe it will remain to be seen on the first season. Maybe it might change. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But between the pimping out daughters like Alicent Hightower, Sir Otto making Alicent Hightower go to a grown-ass, damn near 40-year-old ass man's bed chambers in her dead mother's most revealing dress, as well as, disemboweling a pregnant woman without her consent, this does not speak to what people are going through right now, especially women. It's really gross to see it as far as I'm concerned, especially with the fact that we just dial back women's rights and reproductive rights, such as Roe v. versus Wade. We just dialed it back to the Stone Age and still are trying to dial back women's rights as well too, such as prenatal care and care of women's bodies that are being stripped by lawmakers as we speak, to drive us in times like what we just saw right then and there. It is gory. It didn't give a message that was nuanced. It didn't even tell what it was. And when you to sit there and then have this woman's only line is to say, we have royal wombs. This is our greatest duty. Pregnancy is a battle itself. Like, what? You can already tell that she hates it, but it's just like, no. She never got any autonomy over her body. Emma, or nor did she get the choice and say of if her life would be saved versus not saved. And while Viserys had this warm kind of Ned Starkish kind of dad thing, I couldn't find myself connected to him, especially after that, after the fact that you made that choice because you wanted a male heir so bad. You wanted it so bad that you decided to kill your wife, and all of this happening for nothing. Oh, sorry, spoiler alert. In between that and the council going on and on and on about, oh, we need an heir, there needs to be a male heir, all this obsession over this damn ugly ass throne that we've been seeing for 10 years, it never pushed the way it did. The dialogue went in circles. I couldn't sympathize with any of them, and I thought I could sympathize with Corlys Velaryon. Like, I really thought I can sympathize with him like so well, but it turns out I really couldn't. As I really just couldn't. Everything just seemed like a waste of damn money. And what merely makes me more aggravated, and while I may have talked shit about this show because I was right on certain things that needed to be fixed with the writing, it makes me think of, you canceled Lovecraft Country for this mess? For this lukewarm, barely off the teat mess? You canceled, HBO canceled Lovecraft Country, something that was mind-bending, different, made you question, sure, problems in its script writing and behind the scenes and with a little bit of favoritism, but still, you canceled off a great show like that for this piss warm ant shit. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this. And this is what always tells me to go to the saying of what I've always said. You cannot polish a turd and call it a diamond. And I know people are like, well, it's just the first episode. Why should we keep giving this a chance? We have given this a chance for 10 years and wasted people's time for 10 years. People's time have been wasted for 10 years. You either get it right this time or don't get it right. And don't even go to it. Don't even go to it. Don't even do it. Don't mess with it no more. Don't give us no more spinoffs. No, nothing. Nobody wants that stuff. Nobody wants it. Or like Jon Snow, I don't want it. Nobody wants that mess because it's just ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous. So when we look at it, when we look at these things and we look at what they are and we look at these problems that are in this show, it's already been written, like the ink has dried, as one would say. The ink is dried. And now we have nothing to do but ride it out. Okay? It really, like, we have to just ride it out. So at the end of the day, we just got to look at it how we look at this from a standpoint of where we're not pleased at. The dragons really are horrible. The people are not relatable to us. Like I said, Corlys Velaryon is nothing but the token black man. I have literally said that because why is it that there's not many people of color around him, but you want to make Westeros more diverse, but yet he's the only black child there with his 2 children. Them nappy ass wigs on them black folks, they wrong for that. I don't care. They look like rat's nest on people's head. They wrong for that. They wrong for that. They all wrong for it, for all of them. That's horrible. The costume is just horrible. I thought the Lord of the Rings costume set, you know, on the trailer looked a little bit like cosplay, but all this looked cosplay. Okay. And while Daemon Targaryen's armor during the jousting part was like cool from the like neck below, the headset looked like something from that you would get from RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm just saying, it looked like something they would wear at RuPaul's Drag Race. I put that out there. But you know, I was really put off mostly with the ripping women apart to have children I was really horrified by that. And the pimping of daughters. I mean, there's so many children today to relate it to there's so many to today's time. There's so many children that are right now being in foster care systems that are being pimped out to gross sick ass men. You don't believe me? Well, check the news articles after Roe v. versus Wade and what the adoption center is. And this does not imitate life or art. It comes up with a thing of this is what women had to do and what is its purpose. And seeing as this story is based on two women, Alicent Hightower and Rhaenyra Targaryen, these women are going to be very powerful women. But are they? Because you have a bunch of old perverted men backing them. And speaking of perverts, I don't know about y'all, but that scene between Rhaenyra and Daemon Targaryen, it's just gross to look at. It is like if you have been sexually assaulted as a person or a woman or any woman or man or whatever, people who have been taken advantage or groomed by older people who should be in care and protect you. This shit is just beyond cringy and nasty. It's cringy and nasty. And while people are like signaling and saying, well, that's his character. He's supposed to play a jerk or a confused jerk or a misunderstood jerk. It's still some things that just need to stay on paper and stay in a book and not be translated outside for us to look at in real life. And that was one of the things, as well as the disembowelment of a freaking pregnant woman. Those things should have never been really, in my opinion, the time that they took to do that, to do both of those scenes, they could have took to acquaint us with more of the characters, their sympathies, their drawbacks, who they are, all the above. I mean, the thing that hooked us together with the Starks and Daenerys is the fact that we can sympathize with where their struggles were at. The Starks were the nuclear family that really, really just stood out for everybody. And then to see their whole family torn apart, and the kids thrust into each direction, and be hurt and be left to the wilds of this world, it's ridiculous. And the betrayals as well too. Everybody, just about, and I'm going to tell you something, not to spoil it too much, just about everybody's getting ready to be safe on this motherfucker. It's probably almost until maybe, if I would say, the end or the end of season 1 where you might start seeing some murders, or season 2, because I heard there's supposed to be 3 or 4 seasons. Probably by season 2 or 3, you're gonna start seeing murders and things like that. Some news people have seen, like the USA Today, Variety, and other reputable sources of media, news media and entertainment media, have seen this show up until mid-season. And I'm not trying to spoil it for you. They say it don't get any better, but I'm not trying to knock on anybody, but these actors in this script writing needs to find its, and CGI and everything, all the above, it needs to find its rhythm and fast, else HBO is going to be looking at another sinking ship. And spin-off shows can either do bad or good, and there's only so many shows that are spin-offs that look like shining diamonds and understood the assignment. Better Call Saul is one of the best ones. Mod, which is an old TV show, is one of the successful spin-off series and shows, and it garnered wonderful and worldwide attention. But we often need to be careful too about who and what we underestimate. I believe I've read a couple of articles where it's saying Lord of the Rings versus House of the Dragon, and you have HBO in these kind of articles saying, well, we're not worried about Lord of the Rings, we're not worried about it, and they're saying how they're not worried about it and shit. And After this abysmal episode 1, they should be worried about it. After you have failed people for damn near 4 years out of the 10 years that you were running, you should be worried about it. You should be worried about shows like The Witcher. You should be worried about shows like Sandman. You should be worried Game of Thrones, George R. Martin, Miguel Sapochnik, HBO execs. You should be worried about shows like Lovecraft Country. You should be, because we and everybody who knows, who's a writer, who feels like this show is not up to par, we know. We're in it with our eyes open. We know there are better writing and better writing opportunities and better writers and better shows to watch than what you just gave us. And that's on facts. So you should be worried. You should be worried about Wheel of Time. You should be worried about Rings of Power. You should be worried. Because after seeing what I just saw tonight, I don't know. It's horrifying. And it's not about being woke or anything else. It's just hellified and horrifying that you guys are so stagnant to where you don't even view your female characters, who are your main characters, as people, but just chess pieces. And I understand that's probably what the whole war was about. Well, not probably, that's what the war, Targaryen Civil War, was about. But these women do have ambitions. These young ladies have ambitions and power and prowess and status. And to make them eye candy for a bunch of grown ass men. And when I say eye candy, not eye candy as in what they're wearing, but just make them overly that's not how young women really act. Some women do act a little bit faster than other women, but not young women. And while sexuality is something that's meant to be explored as a teenage girl and all the above, it becomes this thing where don't exploit that to the eyes and gaze of older men, because we got enough of that shit going on right now. Okay? And please stop ripping open pregnant women without their consent, because you're not really telling a story about women coming to power. You're just telling them as they're still tools. Don't get used to them having their own autonomy. Don't. And for women who are feminists and they love to watch strong feminist roles, do not watch this. It's just a Lauren, Rhaenyra being queen is just a Lauren to get you to come in, and then when you see what happens to her and her getting eaten by a dragon, especially her half brother's dragon, towards the end in front of her son, you're not gonna like this. You're not going to like this. Now, mind you, the cast is going to grow, because there's going to be some people having kids. But, yeah, that's it. I know I spoiled a lot of things for you, but I currently don't care, and I want to save people as much time and money as possible. A lot of people have gotten on here and said that they've canceled their subscription after the first fucking episode. That's starting to look sad. But like I said, you should be worried. But, yeah, I wasn't trying to be a dick about it, but I just kind of wasted an hour of my life doing that, watching this show. But that's it for the news, movies, and more. I'll probably be back to include some other little tidbits of news within my next watch through. I will be watching this whole series, but not heavily, because it's YouTube, and I have a lot of friends that still do want to hear my opinion on this. So I'm hate watching it a lot for them who choose to not be involved with this and we're too burnt. But comment, like, subscribe, and yeah, see you guys. Bye.